A sail vessel, so there's the mast is still in place. And what gave the game away as to its actual...
The Amazon rainforest is burning and thick smoke is blacking out the sun in parts of...
In recent years, the news has been coming fast and furious, like the urgent beat of a drum marking time, the ground shaking, the oceans changing color, fires breaking out, and strange signs we can hardly name keep showing up one after another. The world isn't moving slow and steady anymore, it's being rushed towards some kind of turning point. Do you feel that quicker pace? Or are we slowly getting used to things that ought to scare us? The Bible warned us plainly about a time like this. Jesus said that wars, famines, and earthquakes are just the beginning of birth pains. But what's really striking is that these signs aren't only happening on the earth. They're showing up in the sky above and in the deep oceans too, like a whole series of signals lighting up at the same time. Is this just coincidence? Or is heaven's clock ticking? In this video, we'll look at 7 events that have shocked people around the world. Each one is a piece of the puzzle, and when you put them side by side, they form a picture that makes you stop and wonder, if the Bible predicted all this ahead of time, how much time do we have left to wake up? So please don't miss a thing. And now, we'll dive into each of these signs and events, the ones filled with the messages from Scripture that God wants to send to His children. Let's get started with 1. A hydrocarbon eruption. The ground cracks open in the middle of the desert. In what seemed like a quiet, lifeless desert, the ground suddenly shook and tore itself apart. A thick, bubbling liquid, like hot tar, came surging up from deep below, creating a deep crater right there in the dry sand and rocks. Word spread fast, and the area was quickly closed off because no one knew what else might be building up under the surface. We're looking at a moment when nature isn't staying quiet anymore, and you can really feel the urgency in every frame of the video that's been captured. Geologists call this a hydrocarbon eruption, where oil or natural gas that's been trapped under pressure suddenly finds a way out. But what really gives you chills isn't the scientific name, it's the timing and how sudden it was. In this barren land that seemed to have been sleeping peacefully for hundreds of years, the surface cracked open like an invisible hand snapped it in two. The earth isn't standing still anymore, and you can sense that something big is waking up way down below. The dark, thick liquid erupted forcefully, throwing dirt and rocks everywhere and forming a round crater like a fresh wound on the earth's skin. Hot gas rose up in clouds, and the strong smell of hydrocarbons filled the air, bringing a real sense of danger and unease. Authorities had to hurry and put up barriers because of the risks of sinking ground or explosions. This isn't just some geological event. We're watching the ground groan, literally, as if it can't take any more. Revelation 6:12 describes it. I watched as the Lamb opened the 6th seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black, like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. These cracks opening up and the unusual shaking of the earth remind us of the moment the seals are opened, when the old order starts to fall apart. Joel 2:30 also warns, I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and billows of smoke. That bubbling liquid and the hot gas rising like columns of smoke in the desert. It's almost a perfect picture of those prophetic words. Luke 21:11 goes on to say, there will be great earthquakes, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. When you put this event alongside all the other upheavals happening around the world lately, the signs don't seem scattered anymore. You can see that things are picking up speed and intensity, like one warning bell after another that we can't ignore. A lot of folks try to calm everyone down by saying it's just a natural thing, and science can explain how it works. But science doesn't tell us why these are exploding all at once with so many other strange signs across the globe. We know how the ground cracks, but the why now is still a big open question. And in that gap, the Bible speaks up as a reminder that the earth is groaning, waiting for the day of judgment that's already set. And this story from the crack deep in the ground isn't over yet. We'll move on next to another sign, this one involving water, where the sea itself turns color right after a rainstorm, as if every part of creation is speaking out together. 2. Blood Red Sea on Hormuz Island. After what seemed like a harmless heavy rain, the water along the shore of Hormuz Island suddenly turned color in a flash. The blue sea got swallowed up by a bright red, spreading fast along the rocky, dry coastline. It made for a sight that was both amazing and a little scary. Videos of that moment show the change didn't happen slow. It was like some hidden signal went off all at once, making folks watching feel like time was squeezing in tight. Hormuz Island has long been known for its red soil, full of iron oxide, but that familiar stuff had never poured straight into the sea with this kind of force before. From up high, a dark red stream flowed from the land out into the ocean, stretching for miles, and standing out in a haunting way against the bits of blue water left behind. We're looking at a boundary that's getting blurred, where land and sea aren't clearly separate anymore, like the natural order is quietly turning upside down. That red isn't the bright kind from coral or a sunset. It's a heavy, thick red that brings to mind thinned-out blood mixing with water. The ocean, a symbol of life and movement, suddenly took on the look of a warning sign. The sight is beautiful in a dangerous way, because the longer you look, the more it feels like you're facing a message that's not meant just to enjoy. Exodus 7:20-21 puts it plain. All the water in the river turned to blood, the fish in the river died, and the river smelled bad. In the Bible, when water changes color like that, it's never a small thing. It marks the moment when God's power steps right into the natural order to wake people up. The picture at Hormuz brings that memory back strong, like an old shadow just passed over the modern sea. Revelation 16:3 goes even further. The second angel poured out his bowl on the sea, and it turned into blood like that of a dead person, and every living thing in the sea died. And in Revelation 8:8, that prophecy gets stressed more when the sea gets hit by fire and destruction. When you put the red at Hormuz next to these Bible verses, the likeness isn't just in the science details. It's in the urgent feeling it plants in people's hearts. Science was quick to explain it as red algae or soil getting washed away after rain, and those explanations are right about how it works. But history shows that similar things have shown up many times before big disasters, like warnings ahead of time. What makes folks unable to brush it off is the timing, with so many other strange signs happening all at once around the world, like pieces of a puzzle starting to fit together. The sea turning blood red, in Bible language, has never been just something to look at. It's a direct warning that even the oceans aren't outside the plan for judgment that's already set. And from that red-tinted water, the story goes even further, leading us to a shocking discovery, where traces of Noah's Ark, the symbol of the first judgment, are said to have shown up almost completely intact. 3. Discovery of Noah's Ark intact. While the world is still arguing about strange signs in the sky and on the earth, another piece of news suddenly came out, carrying the weight of salvation history itself. Researchers announced new evidence showing that Noah's Ark isn't just something from the pages of the Bible anymore. It's shown up with a structure that's almost completely intact. This news spread fast, not loud like a natural disaster, but it made a lot of folks go quiet, because it hits right at a story that humanity thought was closed thousands of years ago. For many years, the mountains around Ararat have been the focus of quiet searches, not with big public campaigns or fancy satellite scans, but with patient work, clearing away layer after layer of dirt and rock buried by time. When the last covering was removed, a familiar shape appeared in the cold mountains. We're witnessing a historic moment, and you can feel plain as day that this wasn't some accidental find. The huge wooden structure slowly came into view, with clear compartments, sizes, and proportions that matched the Bible's description in an amazing way. Inside, the marks of ancient building are still there, like the ark had just finished its mission yesterday. Not just scattered pieces of wood, but a whole orderly thing, enough to make the natural rock idea look pretty weak against what's right in front of our eyes. Genesis 7:23 says it clear. Every living thing that breathed on dry land died. Only Noah and those with him in the ark stayed alive. The ark wasn't just a rescue boat. It was the line between life and judgment. When those remains show up again, it's not just retelling an old story. It reminds us there was a time when humanity was wiped out because of its corruption. Matthew 24:37. 39 continues the warning. As it was in Noah's days, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. They didn't realize what was happening until the flood came and swept them all away. We read these words today, with the ark said to have appeared, and it gives you a chilling sense of coincidence. Not because floods are rising, but because of how indifferent people are to signs that are familiar and scary. 2 Peter 2-5 adds to it. He didn't spare the ancient world, but protected Noah when he brought the flood on the world of the ungodly. This discovery is like living proof, showing the Bible's words aren't vague or just symbolic. It reminds us that judgment by water really happened once, and the Bible makes it clear the next judgment won't be by water. A lot of people still try to deny it, saying it's just a natural rock formation that's been overinterpreted. But the petrified wood, the intentional compartments, and the exact sizes make that doubt harder to hold on to. This find doesn't force anyone to believe, but it does make folks rethink how reliable the Bible is and the times we're living in. From the memory of the great flood and that rescue ark, the story doesn't stop at water. It goes on to another picture in the Bible, when fire shows up as the next tool of judgment, and those forests in South America burning fiercely, like a reminder that's hard to ignore. 4. Intense wildfires in Chile. After the marks left by the Great Flood, the prophetic picture suddenly shifts to a different color, one that's fierce and blazing hot. In the Quilamuta, Lo Encañado area of San Pedro de Melipilla, Chile, a big forest fire broke out almost without warning. In just a short time, the flames spread at an unbelievable speed, getting past all the early efforts to control them. It wasn't just some isolated accident anymore. It quickly became the center of attention, putting the whole area under extreme stress. The fire suddenly shot up high and started moving toward the Maipo River, forcing the authorities to declare an emergency and organize evacuations for the people. Familiar roads turned into escape routes, and homes stood on that thin line between being saved or lost. In moments like that, we realize just how small we are compared to the unstoppable power of fire. Does this feeling seem familiar to you? Like history repeating itself in a different way? What made many witnesses uneasy wasn't just the size of it, but the nature of the fire itself. The flames burned very clean, with little thick black smoke like you see in typical forest fires. There were tall columns of fire, bright and glowing, burning through the trees quickly and neatly, leaving a feeling more like some kind of purification than pure chaos. A lot of folks watching from afar couldn't figure out why the scene had such a solemn, cold dignity to it. Revelation 8-7 once described hail and fire mixed with blood. 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. When you compare that to what's happening in Chile, anyone who reads the Bible has to pause and think. The images of trees burned to nothing, fire sweeping through the forest like a wave of judgment. It brings to mind those warnings written so long ago, meant for the final days of human history. 2 Peter 3-7 adds that the heavens and earth that now exist are stored up for fire, being kept until the day of judgment. Fire in the Bible isn't just about destruction. It also refines and purifies. Amos 1-4 says clearly, "I will send fire, and it will consume." When you put these Bible verses next to the burning forests, their meaning doesn't feel distant or abstract anymore. Of course, many people say this is just the result of climate change and dry weather. That explanation makes sense scientifically, but it still leaves a question hanging. Why did the fire burn so clean and strangely, with little toxic smoke, looking more like refining fire than natural wildfire? Could it be that we're seeing layers of meaning all in one event? The wildfires in Chile, then, aren't just an environmental disaster. They're like a living prophetic image of the judging fire the Bible says will come to purify the earth in the last days. And while the embers are still smoldering on the ground, the story doesn't end there. From these towering flames, we'll move on to something even more controversial: a mysterious entrance to an underground base discovered in Zion National Park. 5. The hidden entrance to an underground base in Zion Park. From those blazing pillars of fire on the ground, the story suddenly turns in a whole different direction, quieter, but just as unsettling. At Zion National Park in the USA, a hiker stumbled upon a strange passageway tucked between two big rocks. No signs, no tourist markers, just a dark crevice sitting there quietly, like it's waiting for someone to walk in. Zion is famous for its sandstone cliffs shaped over millions of years, with those smooth, curving rock walls that follow nature's rules. But this passage is completely different. It's off the beaten path, not on any regular trail, and it looks deliberately placed, as if someone meant to keep it out of sight. Between the huge rocks, there's a narrow slit that's perfectly straight, with edges so sharp and even, it's hard to believe. No random erosion marks, no natural cracks spreading out like you'd see in regular rock splits. That opening leads deep into thick darkness, where light seems to get swallowed up after just a few steps, giving the feeling of a place not meant for people. It's that too perfect quality that sparked all kinds of theories. Some folks think it's an entrance to an underground base from a civilization not of this earth. Others sense something much older, full of mystery. Have you ever wondered what might happen if the ground is really hiding doors like that and they get opened? The Bible talks about times when the line between heaven and earth wasn't sealed up like it is now. Genesis 6-4 mentions the giants and the mighty men of old, beings that didn't quite belong to our familiar world. Those verses paint a picture of an era when other powers were openly here on the earth. Jude 1-6 goes even further, talking about the fallen angels kept in chains of darkness until the great day of judgment. If they're really locked away, where's that prison? Maybe not up in the heavens, but deep in the earth, behind doors that people rarely notice. Revelation 9-1-2 describes a scene worth thinking about. The pit of the abyss opened up, smoke rising like from a huge furnace, darkening the sky. That's not like the burning fires in Chile. It's an unveiling, something breaking in from a sealed-off dimension. In this light, the passage at Zion feels more like a symbol than just some geological fluke. A lot of people say it's simply a natural rock split or a rare, narrow cave, but the shape is too precise, the spot too hidden, and the uneasy feeling it gives off make that explanation fall short. Sometimes what scares us isn't the answer. It's realizing there are questions we shouldn't wake up. Whether it's a trace of off-world technology or a door tied to ancient dark forces, the entrance at Zion is something worth pondering. It reminds us that the unseen powers the Bible warned about haven't gone away. They might just be hiding, waiting for the right moment. And from those dark underground paths, our eyes get drawn back up to the sky, where another strange sign is showing up. An odd halo around a snow-capped mountain peak. 6. Oval-shaped glory over the snowy mountain. Up on those snow-covered mountain slopes, where folks usually figure it's just cold, wind, and dead quiet, something happened that turned everything we thought we knew upside down. It wasn't a loud bang or a flash of lightning. It was a light that showed up like it'd been there all along, just waiting for somebody to notice it. The first feeling wasn't fear. It was more like your mind just stops for a second, like when you realize you're standing in front of something way bigger than everyday words can handle. The weather that day was perfectly normal. No storm clouds, no thick fog, Nothing unusual in the air that anybody recorded. The snowy mountain sat there in its usual cold stillness, the sky blue and wide with no warning at all. But right in that nothing to see here moment, an upright oval glow quietly appeared, making the whole scene feel like it got pulled out of ordinary life. That glow hovered just a foot or two off the ground, not touching the snow, not casting a clear shadow, and not making any sound. The snow around it wasn't falling random. It was swirling in steady circles, like it was following some unseen rhythm. We could see the light, but what really gave you chills was how orderly it all was. Nothing like the messy stuff nature usually throws at you. There are moments when people don't need to run around looking for answers, because the thing itself is the question. You might not say it out loud, but deep down, you feel like that sky wasn't just pretty, it was watching us back. Signs like this don't come to shock you. They plant a quiet unease that sticks around. The Bible talks about times when signs appear in the sky right along with things shaking down here on earth. Luke 21:25 warns there will be strange signs in the sun, moon, and stars, leaving people confused and scared. That glow among the snowy peaks, seen this way, feels like a quiet piece of a bigger picture that's slowly coming into view. Acts 2:19 goes on to say, "The Lord will show wonders in the heavens above and signs on the earth below," like both places are speaking up at the same time. When you put this next to the big upheavals that happened before, you start noticing a familiar rhythm. Nothing scattered or lone anymore. Matthew 24-30 talks about the sign of the Son of Man appearing in the sky, not in meaningless chaos, but in power and glory. That oval glow didn't look like any plain or ordinary weather thing. It brought to mind those old symbolic descriptions where light isn't just for seeing, it's for signaling. Still, some scientists tried to calm everybody down by talking about light refraction or optical illusions. But when something has clear shape, position, and orderly movement, those plain technical explanations feel pretty thin against what people actually experienced. Not every sign is given so we understand it right away. Some things just need to be noticed. That glory over the snowy mountain didn't force anybody to believe, and it didn't demand agreement. It just hung there quietly, the same way those great signs from heaven were talked about thousands of years ago. And from that light floating in midair, the story is about to come down to earth, where one final thing is happening. A huge stretch of land is being moved and carried away by water, as if the very foundation of the world isn't standing still anymore. 7. A large farm area breaks off and floats away with the water. There was no light hanging in the sky anymore, no fire or smoke to warn us ahead of time. This time, the sign came from the very thing we trust to stay steady, the ground under our feet. One ordinary morning, the familiar line between dry land and flowing water suddenly blurred, like someone quietly lifted the whole foundation and set it drifting. It happened after heavy rain and some light shaking, but what followed went way beyond anything we'd seen before. Not a chunk of land crumbling apart, not a messy slide, no, a whole big farm area broke off in one solid piece. The cut edge was so sharp it gave you chills, as if the land itself decided to leave the spot it had always held. That block of earth floated down the river like an unwanted island. On it, the trees still stood tall, the fences stayed in place. Even the houses didn't collapse, they just quietly moved along with the current. We're looking at something that's not about sudden destruction, but about shifting, like the world is being rearranged without asking us first. There's something really strange about seeing that. You don't panic right away, but a hard-to-name emptiness hits you inside, because what we always thought was permanent now feels temporary. We're used to believing the ground is where we put down roots, our solid base. But that moment shows even the base can walk away. Revelation 6:14 doesn't start with total destruction. It begins with a slow but cold movement. The sky receded like a scroll, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Not crashing down, not exploding, just moved. When a whole farm area floats away with the water, we see that prophecy isn't about things falling apart. It's about the familiar order being pulled away, showing the fragility we've tried to hide. Revelation 16:20 takes it further, when it doesn't just say removed, but every island fled away. Islands don't sink in a flash. Mountains don't collapse right in front of us, but they vanish from spots we thought were forever. That drifting land is like a scary preview. Everything's still there, but no longer where it belonged. Isaiah 24:19-20 doesn't look from high up. It pulls us down to the swaying ground. The earth reels like a drunkard, not shaking once and done, but a long-lasting wobble that leaves people unsure if they're standing on solid ground or just something makeshift. When the land still exists, but won't stay still, the unease doesn't come from disaster. It comes from having no truly safe foothold left. Of course, some folks don't believe in spiritual things and say this was just a big landslide from rain and weak soil. But when a large area breaks off completely intact and drifts away as one unit, that explanation falls short. The size and shape of it go beyond what we usually call random. This isn't just a geological mishap. It's a clear picture of the prophecy, the day when every mountain and island is removed from its place. No trumpets or seals needed, just the ground starting to leave, and people already know the familiar world isn't as sure as it used to be. And when we put this event next to the 6 signs that came before, the picture starts coming together. These 7 pieces don't stand alone. They fit to form a full warning, quiet but clear, that we're living in the days the Bible talked about long ago, days when even the foundations of the world won't stay put. We've just gone through the 7 most striking events from recent times. Which one impressed you the most and really caught your attention? When you put these 7 events side by side, they're no longer just random news stories floating around. They start to fit together, overlap, and form a scary kind of orderly picture. Not the kind of order people make, but the order of signs that are getting stronger, like the heartbeat of an era about to enter its deciding phase. The ground opening up in the desert and a whole farming area breaking off and floating away with the water, those are the start and end of the same big shift. The earth isn't staying still anymore. It's starting to move, like it's being shaken from its old foundation. Revelation 6 and Revelation 16 talked about this long ago, describing how every mountain and every island would be moved from its place without any noise, just at the right time. The sea turning the color of blood and fires burning up forests aren't 2 separate disasters by chance. They directly echo the bowls of wrath and the trumpets in Revelation, where water and fire become tools for warning. Revelation 8:8, 9, and Revelation 16:3 both make it clear. When the sea and the land get struck at the same time, that's when people can't pretend anymore that everything is still normal. Finding traces of Noah's Ark opens up an even deeper meaning. It's not just archaeological proof. It's a living memory of a judgment that already happened once. Genesis 7 says the old world was wiped clean by water, and only those inside the ark survived. When that piece of memory gets brought back to the present, it's not to satisfy curiosity. It's to remind us that the history of judgment isn't some old fairy tale. Matthew 24:37-39 compares the final days to the days of Noah, when people kept eating, drinking, marrying, and going about life as usual right up until the flood came. The parallel isn't in the type of disaster, but in people's attitude, getting so used to warnings that they stop hearing them. It's easy for us to fall into that same spot. The hidden entrance found inside a mountain and the glowing ring appearing in the snowy sky form a strange pair of opposites. One opens into the dark depths of the earth, the other shows light hanging high above. Revelation 9:1-2 talks about the pit of the abyss being opened, while Luke 21:25 and Matthew 24:30 mention signs in the heavens. These 2 directions, working at once, show the world is being hit from many layers of reality. We don't have to label every event exactly to get their overall message. What's important is how these signs are showing up faster and faster, spread out over land, sea, and sky. Can you feel it? That time seems to be getting squeezed, and events aren't waiting on each other like they used to? When the Bible talks about birth pains, Matthew 24-8 isn't describing one single event. It's a series of pains that get more frequent and stronger. What we're seeing has exactly that pattern. Each thing could be explained on its own, but together they form the familiar rhythm of prophecy entering its final stage. What's striking is that these signs aren't just happening in one area or one culture. From the Middle East to South America, from deserts to snowy mountains, from deep in the ground to up in the sky, everywhere has its echo. Revelation isn't talking about one small corner of the world. It's about the whole order being shaken. And today's picture reflects that clearer than ever. Maybe what confuses people most isn't how intense it is, but the feeling that everything is happening right on time. Science can explain the how, geology, the pressure, weather, the conditions, but no field explains why all the signs are coming together in this short stretch of history. That's the gap the Bible left for us to think about. Revelation 1-3 says, "Blessed are those who read and hear these prophecy words, because the time is near." That verse isn't meant to scare us, it's to wake us up. We're not called to panic, but to realize we're living in a time when we can't put things off anymore. Do you see it? It's hard to deny that the big picture is getting sharper. When these 7 events connect, they don't just tell a story about nature, they tell about a world getting close to a turning point. We're standing on the line between everything keeps going and everything's about to change. The Bible always stresses that signs aren't given to feed curiosity, they're to help people get ready. Matthew 24-42 says, "So stay awake, because you don't know the day your Lord is coming." That watchfulness isn't blind fear. It's clear awareness of the value of every moment we have left. Looking at these 7 events as a whole, one thing becomes unavoidable. Humanity doesn't have much time left to stay indifferent. Not because the exact date is announced, but because the signs have all lit up at once. The end times don't come with one big bang. They come with a series of heartbeats getting faster in history. And in that rhythm, each of us has to ask where we stand in the Bible's bigger picture. The 7 signs have shown up, the picture is closing in, and the warning isn't just on the page anymore. It's right in front of our eyes. These 7 events and happenings didn't just show up on their own, and they didn't happen by chance. When you put them all in the same time frame, in the same world situation, they sound like the final warning trumpets that the Bible talks about. Not to scare people, but to wake them up. Not to threaten, but to remind us that the time of grace won't last forever. The Bible shows that God always warns before he judges. From the days of Noah, through the prophets, all the way to the words of Jesus himself, that message has never changed. When the signs start coming one after another, that's the time for people to stop, look at themselves, and ask, where am I headed, and what am I really putting my trust in? Luke 21:28 doesn't tell us to hang our heads in panic. It says, look up, because your redemption is near. That's an invitation full of hope, but it's also a reminder of responsibility. Hope isn't for those who don't care. It's for the ones who are willing to stay awake and answer God's call. So the real action isn't about trying to guess the day or hour. It's about change that starts on the inside. Repentance isn't just words. It's a real turning around of the heart and the way we live. Prayer isn't just a habit. It's a living relationship with our Creator. Putting our trust in the Lord doesn't wait until everything falls apart. It starts right now, while the door is still open. Spreading good messages is part of staying awake too. In a world full of fear, division, and fake news, every word that brings light and every act that shows love matters. We're not called to condemn people, but to remind each other that there's still a way back and there's still grace for anyone who listens. If you're reading these lines right now, maybe there's something stirring in your heart, a thought, a concern, or a prayer you haven't said out loud yet. Don't keep it to yourself. Leave a prayer, a reflection, or just a quiet word from the heart in the comments below as your way of answering the call you just heard. If this touched you, please hit like to show support. Share it so others can think about it too. And subscribe to the channel so we can keep walking this path of staying awake together. Every interaction not only helps spread the message, it also shows you're choosing not to stay silent about the things that matter. Finally, thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to listen, to think it over, and to stay until the end. May God give you His peace, guide you in His light, and help us all stay awake enough to recognize the time we're living in before it's too late. You know, the ocean is stirring. Under the thick black waters of the deep sea and big rivers, things that were once sleeping are starting to thrash, rise up, and quietly watch. The Amazon is churning, cold lakes are shaking, dark swamps suddenly show unusual movements. Can you feel it? The underwater world seems like it won't stay silent anymore. From Brazil to Georgia, 7 strange phenomena are showing up one by one, trailing along, challenging human reason. Nameless creatures, half familiar and half strange, emerging right when humanity is most lost. But these things the Bible warned about long ago. Beasts will rise from the sea, and now, with the signs no longer hidden, a haunting question echoes. Could those creatures be messengers from the abyss, calling for the doom that's coming? So don't miss this, because the info below will make you ponder, get chills, and wonder if humanity's time is running short or not. Now let's dive in with me to check out each phenomenon, starting with 1. A massive herd of snakes moving under the Amazon River. Deep in the Amazon basin, the biggest river system on Earth, something is happening that leaves even seasoned researchers speechless. Under the murky water, where light barely reaches, a wave of life is on the move. It's not fish or swirling currents, but hundreds of huge bodies twisting together, slithering along, pressed close like one single creature, coming awake. The Amazon stretches more than 4,000 miles through the thick jungles of Brazil, where people are just passing visitors. Here, life and death go hand in hand quietly. But this time, what's rising up isn't the usual cycle of nature. A military drone scanning a remote stretch of river caught footage that sends chills down your spine. Below the surface, hundreds of anacondas, up to 30 feet long, are tangled together, moving as one in a smooth, eerie rhythm. They're not hunting, not separating, not in chaos. The whole massive group curves and rises and dips, like it's following some unseen command. Many think this could be a breeding area, but no records show a gathering this large or this perfectly in sync. The images quickly reminded some believers of ancient prophecies. In Isaiah 27:1, the Bible talks about Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, the twisting serpent that God will punish in the last days. Revelation 12:9 calls it the ancient dragon, the one who deceives the whole world. And in Job 41, Leviathan is described as a creature no human can tame, pull up, or control. Is what we're seeing coiling under the Amazon just a coincidence? Of course, scientists were quick to weigh in. They say it's likely migration due to climate change or a rare natural behavior. But the thing is, the video shows near perfect coordination, the kind wild animals almost never achieve. Those plain explanations don't quite touch what really unsettles people, the feeling that something is waking up. When you put this alongside the bigger picture in the Bible, many believe it's more than just biology. It's a sign of ancient forces stirring, of chaos allowed to show itself before the final stage. The Amazon, the river of life, has now become a place where darkness thrashes in silence. And if that herd of snakes isn't just gathering and then fading away, if they keep searching, spreading, swallowing everything in their path, the scariest question still hangs there. Could those movements deep in the Amazon be the first whisper of Leviathan rising from the depths? 2. A human-like creature with a fishtail in the Morocco River. The video showed up out of nowhere, but in just a few hours, it shook up the whole internet. An amateur diver was filming underwater in the calm current when he suddenly caught sight of something that didn't look like any ordinary creature. It didn't dart away in panic or try to hide. Instead, it swam around slowly, almost like it knew it was being watched. The Morocco River is a remote spot in Asia, a freshwater river as deep as 100 feet, and hardly anyone ever goes there. That isolation has kept it pretty much off the scientific map. Down in the dark water, light gets swallowed up fast, creating a quiet but heavy pressure where every movement feels strange. And that's exactly where this creature appeared. Not just a quick glimpse, but long enough to give viewers chills. The footage shows the upper body looking human, with clear shoulders, head, and arms, while the lower part is a long fishtail covered in scales, moving smoothly. The hands have webs between the fingers, waving gracefully in the water. What really got to a lot of people is how it swam right alongside dolphins, like old friends. No chasing them off, no avoiding them. Just think about it. If this was only an illusion, why did everything look so smooth and real? Right away, heated arguments broke out. Science says it might be an underwater hallucination or a dolphin distorted by the camera angle. But the video is clear. The movements seem deliberate, and especially the body structure doesn't match any known species. The safe explanations don't seem strong enough to ease the growing unease. When you look at this through the lens of the Bible, many folks start connecting it to Genesis 6-4, which talks about the Nephilim, hybrid beings that showed up when the natural order got broken. In Daniel 7-3 and Revelation 13-1, different beasts rise from the sea, bringing power and deception. In the Bible, seas and rivers are never just water. They're places of chaos where things beyond human control are born. If these hybrid creatures existed in the past, the scary question is, did they really vanish? Or are they just hiding, waiting for the right moment to show themselves again? The video from the Morocco River has a lot of people believing the line between myth and reality is getting thinner every day. This isn't just a shocking image, it's a sign of something deeper going wrong. And if that creature isn't alone, if there are more like it down there, quietly watching, quietly getting closer, the whole picture becomes more terrifying than ever. Will they stay hidden in the dark? Or will they slowly lure people down into the depths, swallowing souls in silence? And that final question still hangs there, like a warning. Who will be the next victim? 3. Ghostly faces rising from the river. They're not full creatures, not clear bodies, just faces. That's what makes this whole thing so creepy, more than anything else. A security camera set up by the riverbank, meant only to track water levels and movement at night, ended up catching something nobody wants to see. On the slightly shaky screen, the water suddenly bulges, and then these blurry faces slowly rise out of the darkness. That river doesn't have a name or any real landmarks. It's just described as about 50 feet deep, with muddy water all year round. It's the kind of river where light never reaches the bottom, where mud and trash build up into their own little world. In the daytime, it looks harmless enough, but after dark, the surface turns into a twisted mirror, showing things that don't belong up here. In the video, the faces don't come all the way up like a person swimming. They just hover, half submerged, with frozen expressions like masks and empty eyes staring straight at the camera. There's no sound, no big splashes, just this feeling that something down there is watching you. Then, one by one, the faces slowly sink back down and vanish, like they were never there. A lot of people who watch the video keep rewinding it, not to spot details, but because of this uneasy feeling they can't quite name. Put yourself in that spot for a second. If you knew something under that familiar water was looking back at you, would you still stand there? Or would you turn away fast and pretend you didn't see a thing? The skeptics jumped right in, of course. They said it was just a camera glitch, light reflections, or some kind of distortion. But when you look frame by frame, the movements are clearly their own. These faces aren't drifting with the current or changing randomly. They show up on purpose, like they're choosing the moment to appear. Science can explain light tricks, but it can't explain those expressions. When people started comparing it to the Bible, things got chilling. Revelation 16:13 talks about unclean spirits coming out of the mouth of the dragon and the beast. Revelation 9:3 describes beings given power, rising from smoke and the abyss. And in Psalm 69:1-2, water isn't just a natural thing anymore, it's a picture of the deep swallowing the soul, dragging a person down into despair. Put those verses next to the video, and a scary idea starts to take shape. Maybe these aren't flesh and blood creatures at all, but unclean spirits, things trapped at the bottom of the deep, now allowed to surface in these troubled times. They don't attack right away, don't make noise, they just watch, like they're waiting for something bigger. If those faces aren't a one-time thing, if they quietly rise and sink back every night, then the final question hits harder than ever. When darkness falls and the water goes calm again, are they still down there looking up at you, waiting for just the right moment to call out and pull you into that everlasting darkness with no way back? 4. Reptile attack in Canada. It all happened so fast that anyone watching couldn't even figure out what just went down. The video starts out like any other swimming clip. Calm water on the surface, steady breathing, just the soft sound of water splashing. But a few seconds later, that quiet gets ripped apart. From down below, a dark shape shoots straight up and fills the whole screen. A scream gets cut off short. The video ends suddenly, leaving this cold, empty feeling with no explanation. That lake is in Canada, about 60 feet deep, known for water so cold it numbs you even in summer. It's not some remote wilderness spot. It's a place lots of folks go to swim and relax, thinking it's perfectly safe. But under that clear water, the chill isn't just from the temperature. It's from whatever's hiding down there, waiting for the right moment to strike. The last frame anybody caught shows part of a body that looks distinctly reptilian. Jerky movements, rough edges, nothing like a fish or any creature people know from around there. This thing didn't swim around or stalk for long. It attacked head-on, like it had already picked its target. The scariest part isn't really the shape, it's the clear intent you see in that split second. As soon as the video spread, the usual explanations popped up. Some said it was just a stray alligator. Others figured the swimmer panicked and imagined it. But people who know biology quickly pointed out what doesn't add up. Canada isn't natural habitat for alligators, and the movement in the video doesn't match any known reptile. The skeptical take sound reasonable, but they dodge the big question. Why was the attack so sudden and dead on? Job 41 once asked straight out about Leviathan, a creature humans can't control or tame. Psalm 74:14 talks about God crushing the heads of Leviathan, showing its real power and threat. And in Isaiah 27:1, Leviathan is called the fleeing serpent, the twisting serpent, punished on the day of judgment. Those descriptions aren't random, and they sure aren't just for entertainment. If Leviathan isn't only a symbol, but stands for ancient forces under the water, then that moment in the Canadian lake means something a whole lot scarier. It's not just a one-off incident. It's a warning sign. A warning that things once locked away are getting bolder, less hidden, ready to show their power in our world. What really unsettles people most isn't what's in the video. It's the silence afterward. No word from the swimmer. No ending to the story. Just the calm lake surface again, like nothing ever happened. But if that creature is still prowling the cold depths, the question isn't hypothetical anymore. When darkness falls and the water closes over you, would you dare swim alone, knowing something down there is waiting to shatter the peace? 5. Human-like creature emerges at Lake Titisee, Germany. That morning at Lake Titisee started with complete silence. The water was flat as glass, a thin mist crawling low over the surface, swallowing sounds and distances. Two brothers were fishing when they noticed something strange. The water wasn't rippling, but something was rising. No noise, no bubbles, just a shape breaking through from the depths to the surface. The creature rose straight up, chest and above, as if gravity didn't apply to it. Its skin was pale, bluish-white, reflecting the dim, early light in a way that felt ice-cold and suffocating. Its eyes were completely black, no pupils, no familiar spark of life, just empty voids staring back at the men. What really terrified the brothers wasn't just the appearance. The moment the creature showed up, their electronic devices started acting up. The camera shook hard, the signal got noisy, batteries drained for no reason. The video lasted exactly 6 minutes and 66 seconds, a number that anyone familiar with the Bible can't ignore. Then everything suddenly cut out, like an invisible hand had crushed the technology. Lake Titisee sits in Germany's Black Forest, covering about half a square mile and reaching down 130 feet. It's tied to old legends, whispered stories about water spirits that never left. When the creature appeared, the lake stayed perfectly still, not a single ripple, as if the water itself was holding its breath in fear of what had come up from the bottom. Skeptics were quick to explain it away. Thick fog, optical illusion, tired eyes. But they couldn't account for why all the electronics failed at once, or why the creature's expression looked so lifeless, nothing like any staged hoax. Science might explain the image, but it stays quiet about the chill down your spine that the video leaves behind. When you compare it to the Bible, the pieces start fitting together in a frightening way. Genesis 6-4 talks about the Nephilim, beings that were part human, part something else, living in the chaotic time before the Great Flood. Revelation 9-7 describes creatures with faces like men, but a completely different nature. And Daniel 7-3 says it plain. Great beasts will rise from the sea, signaling the changing of ages. What was this thing? Could it be an evil spirit rising from the deep, stepping into our world when the boundary is thinnest? It didn't attack, didn't speak, just appeared, watched, then vanished, like a reminder that a time of chaos is drawing near. The scariest part is that the creature didn't truly disappear. It just quietly sank back down to the dark bottom where no light reaches. If those black eyes are still open down there in the darkness, is it waiting for another lost soul to come close to the water's edge? When night falls and Lake Titisee goes perfectly quiet again, would you dare stand there a long time, knowing something might be watching you from below, with a stare that swallows the last bit of light? 6. Humanoid creature with net-cutting fins off the Spanish coast. The night sea off Spain doesn't roar, it whispers. The dark water lies heavy and quiet, broken only by the steady hum of the boat's engine and the scrape of the nets against the wooden hull. These seasoned fishermen had no idea that in the next moment, something was about to shatter every familiar rule of the ocean. When the heavy net was hauled up from nearly 200 feet down, the boat suddenly lurched hard. It wasn't fish. It wasn't a reef. A strong, deliberate pull yanked the net back toward the deep. The cables stretched tight, almost ready to snap, and then a shape rose out of the water, gripping the net with webbed hands. The creature looked humanoid, but long, sharp fins ran down its body, quivering with every move. Its wet, dark skin caught the boat's lights, not like fish scales, not like human skin either. It pulled hard, twisting the net as if testing what men could handle, then ripped everything apart with one fierce jerk before vanishing into the darkness below. That moment lasted only a few seconds, but it froze everyone on board. Up on deck, nobody could speak. The net lay torn to shreds, like it had met a living machine. The fishermen swore they saw the creature's eyes, calm and clear, not panicked, not angry, like it knew exactly what it was doing. When the story got out, the skeptics brushed it off fast. A big shark, they said. Old net, they figured. But no shark has webbed hands that grab and pull and tear, and no equipment failure fights back with that kind of rhythm. Once again, the voices of men who've spent their lives on the water were ignored. Revelation 13:1 talks about a beast rising from the sea, carrying power and terror beyond human understanding. Daniel 7:3 says, "These beasts are different, nothing we can fit into the usual patterns." And Job 41:31 describes the Leviathan churning the deep like boiling water, as if the ocean is no longer a safe place. Put this event against those old words, and the picture gets frighteningly clear. This wasn't just some strange animal. It was a sign of the beast coming up from the sea. Just like the ancient warning said, it wasn't caught, wasn't fully recorded, just passed through human lives like a short but heavy message. And what keeps the fear alive isn't the attack, it's the way it left. The creature wasn't beaten or chased off. It slipped back down on its own, free, carrying power no one has measured, roaming the vast ocean floor. If even a thick net couldn't hold it, what happens when people become the next target? As something dark rises from the deep, will your net or your faith be strong enough to stand against whatever's waiting down there? 7. Swamp critters in Okefenokee, Georgia. The Okefenokee swamp isn't loud or wild. It just covers everything with a thick, sticky quiet that makes it hard to breathe easy. Fog drifts slowly over the murky water, and the trees twist like old, gnarled arms waiting for something. In that scene, a man in a boat lifts his camera, not knowing he's about to catch something that would shake up a whole community. Out of the calm water, a dark black head rises up. No ripples, no sound, no splash. Just a shadowy shape appearing right as the camera swings toward it, like it knew it was being watched. When the boat turns, the head quietly moves with it, staying just far enough away to keep its shape hidden. The Okefenokee covers about 438,000 acres, and the water's only 10 to 20 feet deep, shallow enough to see vague shadows below, murky enough to hide what's really there. The creature doesn't come fully up or sink completely down. It drifts alongside, matching the boat's speed perfectly, giving that long, breathless feeling of being followed. People quickly think alligator, but the movement doesn't match. Alligators glide, lunge, pull back. This was different. It stops when the boat stops, backs up when the boat backs up, keeps its gaze steady even when the camera shakes. No normal instinct, no usual hunting behavior, just cold, careful calculation. The Bible warned about things like this. Revelation 11:7 talks about the beast that comes up from the abyss, not randomly, only when the time is right. Luke 21:25 describes people in confusion before the sea roars and the waves crash, fear spreading faster than any disaster. Revelation 9:11 names the ruler of the abyss, Abaddon, the destroyer, who doesn't need noise to spread terror. Scientists rush to call it a local animal. Theories come up, debates start, then quickly end. What gets ignored is the part that really chills people. The feeling of being watched, on purpose. Not a chance meeting, not a random run-in, more like a quiet, deliberate check. When you put this together with things that happened before, creatures from the ocean, things from rivers, mixed shapes, now this swamp beast rising from still, dark water, a symbol of the lightless deep. These aren't separate stories anymore. They feel like a warning coming together. The boat left the swamp, the video ended, and the creature vanished. But Okefenokee is still there, darker when night falls. Whatever's hiding under that cloudy water hasn't gone anywhere. It waits, patient, for the moment someone lets their guard down. When you step too close to the edge, what might rise up behind you and pull you into the darkness forever? We just went through 7 strange creatures caught on camera under the water. Which one scared you the most? We just looked at 7 mysterious creatures filmed on camera. Do you think those were messages that God deliberately placed to warn humanity? 7 phenomena, 7 places, 7 moments that seem unrelated, but when you put them side by side, they form a chilling pattern spreading across the world. From the Amazon River churning with giant anacondas to the Okefenokee swamp, where a dark head quietly rises to watch people, they all start from the same place: deep water. not the desert, not high mountains, not the sky. These creatures are rising from rivers, lakes, oceans, and swamps, like some ancient door is opening beneath the surface. The Amazon in Brazil, Muroke in Asia, a cold lake in Canada, Titusy in Germany's Black Forest, the coast of Spain, Okefenokee in Georgia. The distance between them doesn't stop this rhythm of rising at the same time. Look at each one alone, and it's easy to call it random. Look at the big picture, and the timing becomes scary. The movements seem deliberate. The eyes know how to watch. The shapes don't fit normal biology. They appear and vanish right on cue. A wave of strange creatures is surfacing from the water together, as if some unseen command is being turned on. The Bible has warned about this for a long time. In Revelation, the sea isn't a peaceful symbol anymore. It's where destructive power comes from. Revelation 13:1 says, "And I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns. And on its heads were blasphemous names." That beast isn't just one thing. It's a system, a power rising from chaos. Along with the beast is Leviathan, a symbol of ancient power locked away in the deep. Isaiah 27:1 says, "In that day, the Lord with his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea." Leviathan isn't some harmless myth. It's a picture of chaos held back until the end times. What's happening in the world today matches that picture exactly. It's not just strange creatures. It's restless seas, extreme weather, trouble spreading everywhere. Luke 21:25 warns plainly, "There will be signs in the sun and moon and stars, and on the earth distress among nations, confused by the roaring of the sea and the waves." When the waters aren't calm, people lose their footing too. These 7 phenomena aren't just frightening, they're wake-up calls. They make us look down at what's been forgotten, the deep. Down there, things that were once locked away are stirring, creatures that aren't fully animal and aren't fully human, reminding us of the days of the Nephilim, when the boundaries of creation were crossed. Jesus warned that the end times wouldn't just come with wars or famine, but with clever deception. Matthew 24:24 says, "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Not every sign comes from God." Revelation goes on to describe that false power. Revelation 13:13 says, "It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people." When people get caught up in the strange and miraculous, it's easy to mix up real power with fake displays. Creatures rising from the water aren't just terrifying, they're preparing minds to accept the wrong thing. Put these 7 phenomena together, and you see a clear progression. From group movements, to hybrid shapes, to watching, attacking, then lurking. Each step goes deeper into darkness. It's no longer random appearances, it's a building chain, just like the Bible describes before the Antichrist appears. What's important is that the Bible didn't write these things to cause panic. They were written as a final reminder. The signs aren't meant to scare us, they're meant to wake us up. When Leviathan stirs the deep sea, when the beast rises from the abyss, that's the time to look at ourselves. That warning comes with a clear call. Repent, stay alert, discern. Don't chase after the strange. Don't worship false power. Don't fall asleep in what's familiar. The end times, according to the Bible, don't come with one big bang. They come with a rush of signs, each one peeling back another layer. The 7 pictures are done, but the story isn't over. The water is still deep. The sea is still restless. The swamp still waits in silence. As the signs get clearer, the question isn't, "Is this real?" anymore. It's, "How will we respond?" Because like the Bible warned, the end times don't come as a surprise. They come to test our hearts. 7 phenomena have passed before our eyes, like 7 cold waves rising up from the deep, quiet but strong enough to shake what we think we know. From rivers, lakes, oceans, to swamps, they all come together as a serious reminder. These aren't just stories for fun, they're warnings from God, calling people to wake up their faith and get ready for Judgment Day. When we look at the whole picture, what stays with us isn't just fear, but responsibility. These signs weren't given to make us panic, but to help us see clearly, stay awake, and change our ways. The Bible keeps repeating that message. Let those who have ears hear, and those who have eyes see. Because the end times won't come in total darkness. They'll come with clear warnings. So the most important thing isn't hunting for strange creatures. It's turning back to God's Word. Open the Bible. Compare what's happening now with what was foretold so we don't get carried away by fear or false miracles. This is the time to pray more, repent more honestly, and put our full trust in the Lord, the only one who has power over every deep. If those images just now made you uneasy, remember, their purpose isn't to kill hope. On the contrary, they're an invitation to get back on the right path before all the doors close. Time isn't endless anymore, and the choices we make today shape what comes tomorrow. Getting ready doesn't start with big actions. It starts with a heart that's willing to listen. We hope this video series helps you see the world in a deeper, more serious way, and closer to the Bible. If you feel these insights are worthwhile, please hit like, share so others don't miss this important wake-up call, and subscribe to the channel to keep journeying with us in the next videos, where the signs will be even more shocking and clearer. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. We hope each of us leaves this video with a question still echoing in our hearts, and a serious decision about our faith. Those creatures under the water aren't just myths. They're whispers from the abyss, calling for the end of this world.
Good evening. 4 people have now died from the flu in Monroe County so far.
Slop. Slop is used to define creepy, zany, and demonstrably fake content.
Most of the attention that's been focused on the Trump administration's deportation.
Meg, before I let you go, I want to talk about a new tourism proposal. The Trump administration says they
only appropriate punishment is the death penalty.
New this morning, Americans getting their first look at how much they will have to pay for health care coverage under
Greatest public health challenges of our time. Our nation's mental health is in crisis.
This is breaking news. December 2025. America isn't calm and peaceful like it used to be anymore. Bad news keeps coming in every single day. Disease spreading fast, the economy shaking, violence getting worse, and technology slipping out of control. Everything's happening all at once, piling up, total chaos, like the world's caught in a whirlwind with no way out. Do you feel like time is moving unusually fast these days? So why is all this happening right now? Is it just random chance? Or are these pieces starting to fit together with ancient prophecies from the Bible? Jesus once spoke about birth pains, the signs that come before humanity's decisive moment. And this uneasy feeling in our hearts today, is it really for no reason? In today's video, we'll go through the 10 hottest news stories in America right now, based on official data and reports, to see what's really going on behind the headlines. Is this the final warning, or do we still have time to wake up? So please, don't miss a thing. Come along with me as we dive deeper and look at each one in detail, starting right now. I won't keep you waiting. Let's begin with the first story. 1. Flu surge hits hard after Thanksgiving, over 3 million cases and thousands of deaths. Right after Thanksgiving, while planes were still landing and highways were jammed with cars, an invisible wave started spreading across America. News reports came fast and furious, numbers jumping by the day and even by the hour. It felt like time was speeding up. The new flu strain, subclade K, didn't make a big noise when it showed up, but it spread so quickly that the whole health system had to gear up to handle it. You could sense the worry in the air, even without turning on every news channel. According to the latest CDC report from early December 2025, the U.S. had seen nearly 3.2 million flu cases, over 30,000 hospitalizations, and about 1,800 deaths in a short time. lab test positivity rates climbed to 5 to 8%, and states like New York, Texas, and Florida hit very high alert levels. When you hear those numbers repeated on TV over and over, that old heavy feeling from the pandemic years comes rushing back. In times like this, Matthew 24:7 hits close to home in a scary way. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. The Bible doesn't say these things happen one at a time. They pile up, all together, one after another. Sickness isn't just a medical issue. It brings fear, unrest, and that quiet sense of how fragile life is that folks today carry deep inside. As experts argue about vaccines, climate change, or regular flu cycles, Luke 21:11 rings out like a chilling reminder. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events, and great signs from heaven. These words weren't meant to scare people into panic, but to wake us up in moments when it's easiest to tell ourselves everything's fine. You're living in a time when those prophecies don't feel like distant symbols anymore. A lot of folks say this is just a tougher than usual flu season, that science will get it under control eventually. But since COVID, these big outbreaks have come faster, hit harder, and happen more often. Revelation 6-8 paints a picture of the pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth, to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. That mysterious image feels coldly real when you look at today's death statistics. In the middle of all this chaotic news, many people are slowing down, thinking more deeply about life and death. Those numbers aren't just cold facts. They stand for families torn apart, empty homes, and quiet prayers in the night. This isn't just another flu wave. It's a clear warning that the birth pains have started, and time is moving a lot faster than we're used to. And as the flu keeps spreading, another sign of the end times is quietly rising, more subtle and dangerous. Deception spreading through AI technology, where the line between real and fake is blurring a little more every day. 2. Merriam-Webster picks slop as the hottest word of 2025, highlighting all the junk AI content that's everywhere. After the pandemic wave, another threat is quietly creeping into our daily lives, not loud, but slipping in all over the place. At the end of 2025, Merriam-Webster announced slop as the word of the year, and just that choice alone made a lot of folks sit up and take notice. Slop isn't some harmless trend. It describes the low-quality junk content churned out in huge amounts by AI, flooding social media, news sites, videos, and pictures. You can really feel that mess every time you pick up your phone. 2025 marked an explosion like never before in generative AI. Billions of pieces of content get pumped out every day, so fast that people don't have time anymore to figure out what's real and what's fake. Deep fake videos, phony articles, made-up images keep popping up, piling on top of each other, burying the truth under sheer volume. In that flood, you don't even have to go looking for lies. They come find you first. According to Merriam-Webster's announcement, on December 15, 2025, lookups for slop shot way up, with the clear definition: digital content of low quality that is produced usually in quantity by means of artificial intelligence. Big news outlets like CNBC, CBS News, Axios, and Ars Technica all ran stories on it, seeing it as a sign of worldwide worry that AI is ruining reliable information. When truth gets buried under piles of junk content, people's trust starts to crack. In that kind of world, 2 Thessalonians 2:11 rings out like a chilling explanation for our times. And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. The Bible doesn't say the lie comes with a big shout, but through a power that makes people believe wrong without even realizing it. AI, with its speed and scale like nothing before, is turning into the perfect tool for that kind of delusion. As fake content gets dressed up more and more cleverly, Matthew 24:24 becomes scarier than ever. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. These days, those signs and wonders aren't just miracles. They're in images, videos, and information created to fool our feelings. You're living in a time when seeing and hearing with your own eyes and ears isn't a sure guarantee of truth anymore. A lot of folks think this is just tech progress, that AI makes creating things faster and easier. But 2 Timothy 4:3-4 warned us plain and clear. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine. They shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. When slop floods everything, people get used to stuff that's easy to hear and watch, even if it's empty and wrong. In the middle of all that chaotic information out there, there's only one steady anchor that never changes. God's word isn't generated by AI, can't be manipulated, can't be faked. While the world's truth gets twisted day by day, the Bible is still a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. And from this spreading digital deception, another sign of the end times keeps showing up: fear and quiet oppression hanging over immigrant communities. 3. More than 1 in 5 immigrants in America fear arrest or deportation since January 2025. Just when the worries about digital scams hadn't even settled down yet, another kind of fear has become clearer. It's not on a screen, but slipping right into everyday life. You see it in hurried steps, in watchful eyes, in the unusual quiet in immigrant neighborhoods. Since the start of 2025, the mood in many communities across the U.S. has changed. It's heavier, more tense, like someone just tightened an invisible grip on their lives. You'll notice that shift in local news reports, in stories passed around by word of mouth. Under Trump's second term, immigration enforcement policies have been stepped up strongly and kept going. Checks, arrests, and deportations aren't rare anymore. They've become a constant worry. Many families live on high alert, staying in more, changing their daily routines just to avoid running into enforcement officers. The fear doesn't explode loudly. It spreads slowly but steadily, digging deep into people's minds. A big survey done by KFF together with the New York Times, released in November 2025, paints a clear picture of it. 22% of immigrants said they personally know someone who's been arrested or deported. 41% are worried about themselves or a family member, and 40% admit their mental health has been hurt by it. Millions of people change their behavior every day because of fear of ICE, and that unease has become part of the daily rhythm. In this setting, Matthew 24:9 rings out not as a threat, but as a mirror for our times. Then they will hand you over to be persecuted, and will kill you. You will be hated by all nations because of my name. These words aren't just about physical violence. They also speak to isolation, discrimination, and the heavy social pressure on groups seen as different. When fear is used as a tool for control, freedom starts to shrink bit by bit. That shrinking is also reflected in Revelation 13:7, where power is described as reaching over every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. This isn't the picture of one single border. It's a global trend toward more control. You're watching a time when power isn't just enforced through laws, but by planting feelings of helplessness and fear in people's hearts. A lot of folks think this is simply needed law enforcement to protect national security. But Daniel 7:25 talks about a power that will persecute the saints of the Most High, not mainly with swords at first, but with long-lasting and clever pressure. When people are forced to live in constant worry, trust in the world's systems gets tested to the limit. The Lord is showing us a period when freedom can be taken away quickly, and worldly safety turns fragile. In the middle of these changes, faith isn't placed in human power, but in the one who never changes. And from the fear in immigrant communities, another sign keeps becoming clearer. The government is starting to expand control through technology, moving humanity one step closer to full surveillance. 4. The Trump administration expands social media checks to 5 years for visa applications. If in the previous part, fear showed up through cautious steps and worried looks, this time the control comes quietly. No sirens, no handcuffs, just a blank space on the visa form asking you to list all your online activity from the past 5 years. Those seemingly harmless lines are opening a new door where private life gets weighed against government power. Starting early in 2025, with national security front and center, control policies started moving away from physical borders and deeper into the online world. It's not just about who you are anymore. They want to know what you've thought, what you've said, and who you've connected with over the years. The checking goes beyond actions now and touches personal thoughts and views, things that used to be part of inner freedom. By December 2025, the Trump administration officially expanded the requirement to review 5 years of social media history for many visa types. Tourists from 42 countries in the visa waiver program, people applying for H-1B work visas, and even international students are all affected. CNN, NPR, Reuters, and BBC all reported on it at once, calling it the biggest expansion yet, impacting millions around the world who want to come to America. What's striking isn't just the scale, but the nature of the surveillance. When every old post, like, or comment can become part of your evaluation, people start censoring themselves. Do you still dare to say what you believe, knowing that 5 years later, it might decide whether your future door opens or not? The silence now isn't from having nothing to say, it's from fear of being remembered. In this setting, Revelation 13:16-17 whispers like a chilling warning about a system where joining everyday life gets conditioned. No one can buy or sell without that mark isn't just a physical image. It's a symbol of depending on total control. When data becomes the key, freedom gets squeezed into invisible algorithms. Daniel 12:4 talks about a time when knowledge will increase, but along with it comes complexity and hiding. Technology grows so fast that it's hard to tell what's helpful and what's a chain. Folks say this is just needed for security, but the Bible warns that the final system won't just protect, it'll sort, exclude, and control. The Lord is showing a slow but clear process, where freedom gets worn down bit by bit in the name of safety. In this growing web of surveillance, only those who trust in Him will find real protection. And from this invisible control, another sign is waiting ahead: the cold rise of death through more death sentences. 5. Executions in the U.S. hit a near record of almost 50 inches, 2025, mostly in Florida. It's no longer just cold numbers or a screen full of stats. This whole thing starts with the heavy thud of a steel door slamming shut. In 2025, America saw a clear comeback of state-sanctioned death. It wasn't loud or flashy, but steady, like an invisible countdown clock ticking away. Each news report about an execution popped up briefly and then faded, but the echo hung around a long time in the air of our society. As conservative states tightened up on carrying out death sentences all at once, the legal picture got tougher than ever. The reasons given were order, deterrence, justice for the victims. But in that flow, the line between justice and getting numb to taking a human life started to blur. Strictness wasn't the exception anymore. It became the usual rhythm. According to updates from NPR and The Washington Post, in mid-December 2025, the U.S. recorded 46 to 48 executions, the highest in 15 years. Florida alone made up nearly 40% with 18 to 19, a number never seen since 1976. With strong pushing from Governor Ron DeSantis, death sentences moved faster, procedures got shortened, and death came sooner than any time for reflection. In that setting, Matthew 24:12 rings out like a sad explanation for these times. Because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. As society gets used to ending lives through the law, compassion doesn't vanish right away, but it cools off little by little until it doesn't shock anyone anymore. Revelation 6-4 paints the picture of the red horse, a symbol of violence and a loud killing. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. This isn't just war or street chaos, but when the law coldly and legally claims the right to take life. A lot of folks say it's necessary justice, the price for terrible crimes. But the Bible doesn't just talk about punishment. It talks about the value of life given by God. When death gets repeated enough, people start seeing it as just a routine, and that's the sign we're drifting from our original moral foundation. Humanity is entering a phase where life is taken lightly, and love grows cold, just like the prophecy said. From this legalized physical death, another sign is showing up clearer: widespread money troubles, wearing down the hope of millions day by day. 6. Congress refuses to extend Obamacare subsidies. Health insurance costs soar starting in 2026. There was no big bang, no dramatic announcement, just a slow, deep unease settling in. Toward the end of 2025, a lot of Americans started to feel something familiar slipping away: the peace of mind that comes with knowing you can get medical care when you need it. A quiet change was happening, not out on the streets, but behind closed doors in Congress. As 2026 came closer, that burden took on a clearer shape. The Obamacare subsidies weren't extended, and without any fanfare, health insurance costs went from manageable to something millions of families simply couldn't handle. For years, the extra subsidies put in place during the Biden years had quietly kept healthcare affordable for middle-class and lower-income folks. But when the end of 2025 passed without a vote to renew them, that fragile stability cracked fast. The policy fights happened up on Capitol Hill, but the real impact landed right at kitchen tables across the country. According to reports from NPR, NBC, and KFF, in December 2025, unless something changed at the last minute, millions of Americans would see their premiums double in just 1 year. Estimates put the number affected between 20 and 30 million people, forcing them to choose between healthcare, rent, or groceries. Choices nobody wants to make, but ones that were becoming all too common. Revelation 6-6 comes to mind as a chilling picture of end-time economics: a quart of wheat for a day's wages, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages. But do not harm the oil and wine. Prices shoot up, basic necessities become luxuries, and unfairness creeps in, as only some people can still afford a decent life. You might have skimmed past stories like this pretty quickly. They don't shock you right away. But when the actual bills show up in the mailbox, it feels completely different. A lot of folks started counting every penny, even thinking twice about going to the doctor, and that's when the worry really took shape. Matthew 24-7 ties right into this picture. And there will be famines in various places. Famine isn't just about running out of food. It's about not being able to get the basic things you need to survive. When healthcare turns into a privilege instead of a right, society moves one step closer to that prophecy. Some say this is just the usual budget cycle, normal party fighting. But the Bible doesn't talk about the political reasons. It talks about the end result: skyrocketing costs and people living with constant anxiety. You can feel that pressure spreading, even if it hasn't hit you directly yet. In the end, when material things get shaky, the Lord reminds us not to put our ultimate trust in the systems of this world. Out of these economic struggles, something deeper is starting to show itself: a spiritual crisis where people lose their way amid growing uncertainty and fear. 7. Growing concerns over mental health, expanded support programs, but still not enough. America in 2025 isn't just stressed from the economy or politics. It's dealing with something even more dangerous. People's minds are wearing out in huge numbers. Millions are living with ongoing anxiety, constant sleeplessness, and feeling down without any big trigger to set it off. After the pandemic, Society didn't collapse the way some feared, but it started cracking from the inside. Schools added more counseling rooms. Workplaces put up posters about well-being, and mindfulness classes popped up everywhere. On the surface, it looks like progress, but the pace of life hasn't slowed down at all. People are encouraged to open up, while still being pushed to handle more every day. Data from KFF and the CDC in 2025 shows an uncomfortable truth. Between 18 and 20% of students have used mental health services at school, but the system is always short on staff, time, and real depth. Cases of depression and anxiety among young people aren't just issues to watch anymore. They've become the background for a whole generation growing up under constant pressure. When Matthew 24:8 talks about the beginning of birth pains, it's not picturing one big shock, but ongoing contractions that simmer, repeat, and drag on until exhaustion. That's exactly the rhythm in people's minds today. Not breaking all at once, but stretched so tight that even a small bump could shatter it. Conversations are getting shorter, people avoid eye contact longer, and sighs happen more often than laughs. Some folks don't even know why they're sad anymore. They just know they're not at ease. That feeling is spreading, without any virus or direct contact needed. 2 Timothy 3:1 puts it straight: difficult times. No fancy words, no grand pictures, just a heavy reality hanging over everything. This hardship isn't measured by money or wars, but by how much mental strength people have left when they're stuck in uncertainty and comparison for too long. A lot of folks think adding more experts, more meds, more programs will fix it all. Those things help, sure, but they're like patching a fabric that's worn out from the threads inside. The Bible sees the problem on a deeper level. The human soul is being pulled away from its original purpose, from its connection to the one who made it. Jesus didn't start by telling people to get it together. He started by offering them rest. That's a kind of healing that goes against the world's push for productivity. When people have no place to set down their mental burdens, they'll collapse before their bodies even get tired. And when the collective mind becomes as fragile as glass, the next bumps will cause much bigger damage. From this mental exhaustion, another wave is clearly forming. The economy is starting to wobble, and visible unrest is about to follow right behind the invisible hurts. 8. Unemployment rate rises to 4.6%, highest in 4 years. The U.S. economy at the end of 2025, with the job market slowing down, and this time, it's not just talk. That 4.6% figure just showed up in the official report and made the markets pause for a bit. No need for guesses or long explanations. Unemployment in America has hit its highest level in 4 years, right as we're heading into 2026. After months of sluggish growth starting back in 2024, the job market is starting to show some clear cracks. Businesses are being more cautious about hiring, plans to expand are on hold, and even jobs that used to feel secure aren't completely safe anymore. The upbeat mood from the post-recovery days has given way to more careful planning and playing it safe. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, release on the 16th of December 2025, the unemployment rate climbed to 4.6%, while the economy only added 64,000 new jobs in November, way below what people expected. CNN and the New York Times both called it an early warning sign of a recession starting to take shape, even if it hasn't been officially named yet. These numbers don't stand alone. They follow a string of pressures from before: high living costs, rising health insurance, cuts to benefits, and now the growing risk of job loss. When income isn't steady anymore, all those personal plans start to feel shaky. The economy isn't crashing right away, but it's starting to make folks lose that sense of security. Revelation 6:6 once described a time when prices become a heavy burden that doesn't match the effort put into work. A quart of wheat for a denarius isn't just about famine. It's a picture of the imbalance between labor and survival. When jobs slow down but costs don't drop, the economic squeeze starts to tighten. People are getting more careful with spending, quieter about the future, and more cautious with decisions that used to seem routine. No need to panic. Just watching long enough shows that the rhythm of society has changed. James 5:1-3 offers a completely different view from the usual economic reports. Come now, you rich. Your gold and silver are corroded. In times of upheaval, piled up wealth isn't a foolproof shield anymore. Things that seemed like long-term security can lose value fast when the system gets shaky. A lot of folks think this is just a familiar economic cycle, and jobs will come back soon. But the Bible doesn't deny cycles. It points out what they mean. At some point, the worldly foundations people rely on show their limits. That's when the true value of life really comes into focus. This rise in unemployment isn't just about money. It's a test of where people put their trust. When jobs aren't certain anymore, deeper questions come up. What really keeps life steady? And amid these economic pressures, another reality keeps going alongside it and getting clearer. Violence in society hasn't gone down, and it's waiting for the next moment to flare up. 9. Gun violence keeps rising, with hundreds of mass shootings in 2025. It's persistent and shows no sign of going away. These aren't just isolated events that shock everyone and then fade. Mass shootings have become a regular part of the daily news, showing up as steadily as the weather report, gas prices, or other familiar parts of modern life. Though lower than the peak periods, stats from the Gun Violence Archive, updated through December 2025, show America still had around 350 to 400 mass shootings that year, counting incidents where 4 or more people were shot. Thousands of lives continue to be lost or changed forever by guns, happening in schools, neighborhoods, shopping malls, and places that used to feel safe. The debate over gun control goes on without end. One side stresses the right to own guns. The other calls for stricter laws. But in the middle of all the arguments, the number of victims keeps adding up. Violence doesn't wait for political agreement, and new reports keep coming one after another, like case files that never get closed. When violence repeats long enough, society's reaction changes too. Incidents that once stopped the whole country in its tracks now get just a few minutes on the evening news, then quickly get pushed down by the next tragedy. This emotional numbness spreads quietly, but it's dangerous because it signals something deeper going on beneath the surface. The Bible describes that state clearly. Matthew 24:12 says, "Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold." It's not just that violent acts are rising, but that the collective conscience is slowly wearing away when evil no longer shocks like it used to. That picture reminds us of Noah's time in Genesis 6:11. The earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. Violence isn't just a social problem. It's a sign that moral order is rotting from the inside. When human life is taken lightly, society heads down a dangerous path. Many folks think this is just a matter of culture, laws, or mental health, and that technical fixes will eventually work. But the Bible doesn't see violence as something temporary. It places it in the bigger picture of the end times, when people drift further from God and moral standards get turned upside down. In that view, true peace doesn't come from laws or political deals. The Bible says only the return of Jesus Christ will end the cycle of violence, when justice and life are fully restored. Until then, the world will keep seeing these warning signs one after another. And while physical violence hasn't even settled yet, a new kind of control, quieter but more widespread, is slowly taking shape in the digital world. 10. Growing worries about digital privacy and AI are causing millions of people to hold back on sharing their data. One thing is changing real fast in 2025. Folks no longer feel like the online world is a safe place. Every search, every text, every photo can stick around longer than the person who made it. And that fear is spreading quicker than any new tech. AI is growing at a speed we've never seen before in 2025, working its way deep into jobs, schools, healthcare, banking, and even personal lives. At the same time, surveys from Pew Research and ExpressVPN show that 60 to 80% of Americans are worried about AI invading their privacy. Millions are starting to turn off tracking, cut back on sharing data, or pull away from platforms they once thought they couldn't live without. What's worth noticing is that this worry didn't come from one big incident. It built up, bit by bit, through every software update, every long set of terms and conditions, every feeling of being known too well, without ever saying a word. AI doesn't have to force anyone. It just needs enough data to paint a picture of you that's more accurate than you might think. This is where we hit a very human moment. Convenience is running straight into freedom. There are questions nobody says out loud, but most of us have thought about them at least once. If one day every purchase, every trip, every choice needs approval from some system, where's the line between helping and controlling? And once that line starts to blur, is there any way back? The Bible has long described a scene that many used to think was way off in the future. Revelation 13:16-17 talks about a time when no one can buy or sell without having the allowed mark. That's not just a religious picture. It's a warning about a total control system where being part of society depends on approval from one central power. Along the same lines, Daniel 12:4 says that knowledge will increase. This explosion of knowledge isn't seen as bad in itself, but it comes with the ability to manage, sort, and watch over things on a global scale. When knowledge isn't neutral anymore, it becomes a tool for shaping how people act without any force. A lot of folks point out that technology is still saving lives, connecting people, and making the world run better. That's true. But the Bible doesn't deny progress. It warns about the direction progress takes when people put all their trust in systems instead of in the Creator. History always shows the same thing. The problem isn't the tool, it's who ends up holding the real control. Maybe that's why more and more people are choosing to slow down and keep a piece of their privacy, like holding on to one last bit of breathing room for the soul. Not everyone can put a name to that uneasy feeling, but it's there in every small choice, every pause before clicking agree to share one more thing. In the big picture of these 10 signs, this isn't some loud alarm, it's a quiet, steady whisper. The Bible reminds us that in those times, only those who belong to the Lord are truly protected. And maybe preparing spiritually isn't some far-off idea anymore. It's something worth thinking about right now. And we've just gone through the 10 biggest events in America. Which one made you stop and think the hardest? The 10 news stories we just heard don't stand alone like random headlines that come and go. When you put them side by side, they form one clear, heavy picture that's worth thinking about. A picture of where America and the whole world are headed. It's not just about problems with technology, the economy, or society. It's something deeper, a shift in the very foundation of right and wrong, faith and conscience. Things that used to seem strange are now normal, and the values that once held society together are slowly being pushed aside. The Bible didn't say these things to scare us, but to wake us up. When the signs start piling up, lies spreading everywhere, violence growing, control tightening, fear creeping into every home and every heart, it's not by chance. God's word warned that these things would come like labor pains, signaling a decisive time in human history, not with loud trumpets or big drama, but quietly, clearly, and in a way no one can deny. The most important part of all this isn't how many % we get right in our analysis or whether we can guess exact dates. What matters more is how each of us responds to what's happening around us. The Bible says it plainly. God doesn't want anyone to be lost. He wants everyone to turn back to Him and be saved. He's patient, waiting, holding the door of grace wide open right up to the last moment. But that door won't stay open forever. You might be watching this with all kinds of feelings: confusion, worry, doubt, or even just not caring much. But in a world that's getting shakier by the day, Jesus is still the one safe place that never changes. Today, right now, is still the day of salvation. You don't need fancy rituals or to be perfect. All it takes is a humble heart turning back to Him, putting your trust in the cross and what Jesus did to save us. If these news stories have made you pause and think, take a quiet moment to pray. Tell God what's weighing on your heart. Ask Him to guide you, protect you, and give you real peace. And if you'd like, leave a short prayer or an honest thought in the comments about the signs of these times. It's more than just commenting. It's a testimony and a way to connect with others who are seeking the truth too. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. If this helped you in any way, please share it so others can think about it too. And subscribe to the channel to keep walking through these topics together. May God bless you, keep you safe, and help you stand firm in your faith through these unsettled days. What's happening to America right now? If this is some kind of warning, what is God trying to tell us? Those questions hit hard, like a scream in the middle of the night. When nature gets furious, storms rage in, and it feels like they're about to swallow up the whole country. Can you feel it? That uneasy feeling creeping in? Like something really big is coming? From the tornadoes ripping through parking lots in Dallas, tossing cars around like toys, the sky over Iowa turning dark and eating up the light, twisters roaring like monsters, cranes in Houston getting flung around like feathers, Miami shaking as people get swept away by the wind, New Orleans getting hit with violent shaking from ground to sky, strange sounds in Kansas like metal scraping along, and in North Carolina, familiar roads turning into raging floodwaters. These moments aren't just random accidents. They're whispering a scary message from above. But what is that message? Let's look closer at each storm, because this might be the final roar before the end of days. 1. A tornado dragging cars around like toys in a parking lot. Just picture a fierce wind suddenly flipping over ordinary cars that seem harmless, tearing apart the calm in just a few breaths, turning a familiar parking lot into a deadly playground. It all happened so fast that nobody had time to react, like a breaking news story that exploded out of nowhere, where nature doesn't warn anymore, but strikes without mercy. And right then, we start to really feel one thing. We're smaller than we like to think. Dallas, Texas, a place that's no stranger to tornadoes, got hit hard when huge wind columns swept through. Wind speeds were recorded hitting up to 200 miles per hour at times, strong enough to bend every safety limit we'd trusted. Those parking lots, tied to everyday life, in a split second became the battleground between people and power from the sky. The tornado charged in like a missile, sweeping away cars weighing nearly 2 tons, lifting them off the ground and sliding them hundreds of feet as if they had no weight at all. Windshields shattered, bodies twisted, metal crashing made sharp, panicked noises that echoed like hopeless cries for help. When you see those images, nobody needs to explain. This wasn't a normal wind anymore. That moment left witnesses frozen, hearts pounding, the usual sense of safety completely gone. In the chaos, a quiet thought creeps in. If everyday things like cars can be dragged around so easily, where do we stand against this power? There's something beyond science, beyond plain logic. The Bible talked about days like these. Matthew 24:7-8 says, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. But all these things are only the beginning of the birth pains." And Luke 21:11 adds, "There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven." Those old words now sound like they're coming alive in today's world. Of course, some say it's all just climate change, random coincidence. But when these events keep happening one after another, breaking every record, that explanation starts to waver. Ignoring the spiritual side of these things sometimes feels like trying to close your eyes to an obvious warning. After the tornado, what's left isn't just mangled cars. It's a cold message to a proud humanity. We don't control everything. This is a wake-up call, urging repentance and turning back while there's still time. And if cars flying like toys is just the start, what more will the darkening sky ahead swallow up? 2. A regular person pulls over at a rest stop because the storm up ahead is too dangerous. The gray sky rushed in like the darkness of hell, forcing folks to stop and hide in the growing terror that swelled up every second. One person on a quiet road had to pull over, not from being tired, but because a solid black wall was bearing down ahead. In that moment, we realize there are times when our survival instinct tells us clear. Going on means disappearing. Iowa, that peaceful rural Midwest area, suddenly became the center of nature's fury. This is where tornadoes often form. But this time, the air felt different, heavy and biting cold. Winds howled at speeds up to 150 miles per hour, turning the space around into invisible blades that cut right into skin and into a person's deepest fears. Even though it was still morning, the sky turned pitch black like a moonless night, swallowing all the light completely. Sheets of aluminum, road signs, metal roofing got ripped apart by the tornado and flew through the air like the fangs of a hunting monster. The roaring sound went on without stopping, deep and fierce, as if the whole sky was clenching its angry jaws, gobbling up everything for miles around. The person taking shelter could only hold their breath, feeling the ground shake lightly under their feet, heart pounding so hard it hurt. In those seconds, you don't need anyone to tell you how thin the line is between living and dying. When nature stops just getting worse and turns outright hostile, we suddenly feel how small and scary that makes us. The Bible has described scenes just like this. Revelation 16:18 says, "There were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth." So tremendous was the quake. And Isaiah 29:6 warns, "You will be visited by the Lord Almighty with thunder and earthquake and great noise, with storm and tempest and flames of a devouring fire." Those ancient words now mirror clearly in Iowa's gloomy sky. Weather experts call this extreme weather events, trying to fit it into charts and scientific models. But when the details match the Bible's prophecies in such a chilling way, those plain explanations don't comfort much anymore. There are things not just for measuring, but for recognizing and waking up to. Through the darkened sky and howling winds, it seems like the Lord is speaking, not in a gentle voice, but with power that makes people stop and listen. This is a warning about the coming day of judgment, sounding amid the black clouds and thunder. And if the wind monster roared like that, how will those huge cranes get torn apart in the next wave of wrath? 3. At a construction site, aluminum sheets get blown around. The savage wind ripped through a structure that seemed unbreakable, bending all human plans and turning steel into something fragile. It wasn't just a forecast or a what if anymore. That moment hit like a punch, showing the hard truth. Things people build can come crashing down in an instant. Houston, Texas, an industrial hub along the Gulf Coast, where concrete, steel, and modern engineering were thought to be tough enough to hold up. But this storm didn't play by the usual rules. Winds ramped up to 180 miles per hour, sweeping across the ground like an invisible saw blade, testing every weld, every support beam, every bit of faith in man-made strength. Aluminum panels from roofing and walls tore loose, spinning in the air like dry leaves in a whirlwind. Then something nobody expected happened. 2 huge cranes, each weighing up to 500 tons, got lifted by the wind and flipped over as easily as feathers. Metal crashed and snapped, making loud, piercing noises that sounded like the earth itself groaning as its limits got shattered. In the middle of all that, it's hard not to feel a chill. Machines that stood for power and progress suddenly looked completely helpless. Seeing it makes you realize one thing clearly: not everything is under human control, no matter how far technology goes. The Bible talks about signs like this. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke." And Luke 21:25 goes on to warn, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And on the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." Those pictures aren't just on the page anymore. They're right there in the twisted steel and dust. Some folks say this is just the result of pollution, of humans wrecking the climate. That sounds reasonable enough. But when winds go beyond natural limits, when structures built to handle the worst fall so easily, a bigger question comes up. Could there be a greater power touching the foundations of the world? Those fallen cranes don't just leave rubble behind, they leave a serious reminder. The foundations we're so proud of can shake at any time. This is a call to turn back and wake up before the end times come without warning. And if cranes can topple like that, how will people caught in the next storm get swept away? 4. A group of people walking through a storm experience extremely strong winds. The fierce wind rushed in like a hunting animal, without warning, leaving no way out, wiping away all traces of life on the coastal streets. In that moment, a group of folks going about their everyday lives suddenly found themselves thrown right into the heart of the storm, where every step turned into a real struggle just to stay alive. No more spectators, no safe distance, just people facing the chasing power head on. Miami, Florida, the city of warm sunshine and the ocean, suddenly changed beyond recognition. The ocean winds picked up speed to 160 miles per hour, howling through the tall buildings, tearing apart the city's order and turning the streets into a chaotic battlefield. The sea and the wind seemed to team up, pushing the city into a challenge that no preparedness plan could fully cover. From a distance, those huge styrofoam containers on heavy 10-ton trucks got ripped open, broke formation, and flew scattered for miles like a flock of panicked birds. The wind whipped relentlessly, sweeping up everything in its path, from signs and barriers to things that seemed harmless. People got pushed sideways, struggling like dry leaves, clinging to anything still standing in the growing fury. In the middle of that scene, it's hard not to pause and think. Steps that used to feel steady suddenly seem fragile, and that familiar sense of safety just falls apart. Watching those folks trying to keep their balance against the fierce wind, you realize that sometimes nature's power doesn't just test our bodies, it strips away human pride. The Bible describes that kind of power in words you can't mistake. Psalm 107:25 says, "For he commandeth and raiseth the stormy wind, which lifteth up the waves thereof." And Matthew 24:29 warns, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." Those words ring out like a living explanation for the scene playing out in the coastal city. Some say it's all just the result of climate change, of the environment hurt by people. That view sounds familiar. But when the wind blows away every normal measure, when the power goes beyond what's predicted, the question about the deeper meaning of these events can't be pushed aside. Isn't this maybe not just a consequence, but a warning? The wind passes, leaving behind not just destruction, it leaves a serious message. Some things need to be washed clean. Some paths need to be corrected. The Lord is sweeping away sin, warning about the last day coming faster than many think. And when everything has been swept away like that, what will the next camera footage show about how terrible the shaking of heaven and earth will be? 5. A camera captures the incredible power of a storm in America. It didn't start with the usual thunder. Instead, it was an invisible crash between sky and earth, strong enough to shatter the calm air. The security camera shook hard as rain, and wind slammed down like an earthquake from above, signaling something way beyond human control. In New Orleans, Louisiana, that low-lying area always vulnerable to storms, nature seemed to change its tune. Rain poured down at 10 inches an hour, not just falling, but dumping straight onto the ground. Familiar streets started shaking, not from traffic, but from the huge pressure on the earth below. Just seconds later, the footage showed the ground jolting in waves, like a 7 earthquake spreading out. House walls trembled, streetlights swayed, and the roar of wind and rain filled everything. There was no longer any line between a storm and an earthquake, just one combined force showing its full strength. What really gives people chills isn't just the pictures, but the steady rhythm of the shaking, as if some giant hand was gripping the world and giving it a hard shake to wake it up. The camera didn't exaggerate or add effects, yet every frame carried the feeling that something bigger than a normal disaster was happening. The Bible described this kind of power exactly. Revelation 11:19 says, "God's temple in heaven was opened. There were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, an earthquake, and a severe hailstorm." And Ezekiel 13:13 warns, "In my wrath I will unleash a violent wind, great hailstones, and torrents of rain to destroy." When you put those words next to the shaking images on the screen, the match is chilling to think about. Of course, science calls it an extreme storm, a term that sounds like it explains everything. But when wind and rain don't just destroy things, they actually make the ground shake. When the strength goes beyond the usual patterns, the question about the spiritual meaning can't be brushed aside so easily. In the end, what lingers isn't just the damage or the numbers. It's the feeling that the world is being shaken on purpose, like a reminder of the limitless power of the Creator. And as long as sky and earth keep trembling like this, what will the next strange sound from heaven announce? 6. Strange sounds in the storm. It wasn't the wind or the rain that made people stop in their tracks right then. It was a sound that didn't belong in the world we know. Right in the middle of that howling storm, the air suddenly got torn open by this weird dragging noise, cold, harsh, and heavy, like something huge was scratching at the sky. Just imagine if we were standing there. Wouldn't our hearts slow down from pure fear? Kansas sits right in the heart of Tornado Alley, where folks are used to twisters and angry skies. But that day, things felt different. Winds hit 190 miles an hour, with low clouds hugging the ground and pressing the air thick like molten metal. What really froze everyone, though, wasn't the wind's power. It was that odd sound that came and went, brief, but enough to stick with you. That sound wasn't like thunder, and it sure wasn't the usual clanging of metal. It came out like a long, drawn-out groan, then cut off sharp, leaving a heavy silence that gave you chills. Goosebumps rose on your arms, because it felt like someone had just whispered something, but not with words, just raw power. In the Bible, there are parts that describe the Lord not with pictures, but with sounds. Psalm 29 doesn't talk about strong winds or blazing fire. It stresses, "The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful and majestic." And in Revelation 10, that sound is compared to a lion's roar, strong enough to wake up 7 thunders. When you put those words next to this mysterious noise, it's hard to call it just some random coincidence. Some sound experts say strong winds can create illusions of noise when air hits landforms or metal structures. It sounds reasonable, but if it's only physics, why do all the witnesses describe the same deep fear, like someone seeing right into their soul? Science can measure frequencies, but it can't measure that shiver in your spirit. Maybe that sound wasn't meant to wreck homes, but to wake people up, not with overwhelming sights, but with a call that makes your heart pause, forcing you to wonder, how are we living in front of the one who made the whole sky? And if it truly was a warning roar from above, then once it's echoed through the storm winds, what final thing in this world will the coming angry floods sweep away? 7. The quiet sloping road of the town has become an angry flood. No one in that town woke up thinking the familiar slope in front of their house would turn into a monster. The morning started like any other day, until the road trembled a bit, and then the roar of water came thundering from up high, signaling something unstoppable rushing down. In North Carolina, In the usually peaceful Appalachian Hill Country, water suddenly broke through all the normal boundaries. The flood moved at about 30 miles an hour, rising up to 20 feet, pouring straight down the hillside into the town like an unleashed waterfall. In just minutes, the familiar landscape was wiped out, replaced by a muddy, deadly torrent. What shocked the witnesses wasn't just the amount of water, but how it moved. The sloping road turned into a raging river, sweeping away cars, snapping fences, tearing up house foundations. The water roared and swirled fiercely, described as stronger than Niagara Falls, like a wild animal let loose from its chains. Seeing that sight, it's hard not to think of those ancient words that were written down long ago. Amos 9:5 said ahead of time, "The Lord God of hosts is he that toucheth the earth, and it shall melt. It riseth up wholly as a flood, like the river of Egypt, and shall be drowned." And in Psalm 93:3-4, that power is stressed. The floods have lifted up their voice. The Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters. Those words suddenly feel chillingly real. The hydrology experts quickly gave the usual explanation: flash flood from heavy rain plus steep terrain. That sounds reasonable, but it leaves an uncomfortable question open. Why are these events getting more violent, more frequent, and matching up so strangely with the series of warnings in the Bible? Are we too quick to dismiss something beyond our measuring models? That flood didn't just carry away things. It carried away the sense of security people had clung to for so long. It exposed how fragile everything built by human hands is, reminding us that in one moment, the familiar order can collapse completely. This isn't just a disaster. It's a strong reminder, forcing humanity to wake up. And when the water recedes, leaving behind mud, wreckage, and heavy silence, a bigger question starts to take shape. If this is the final piece of the picture, then when the flood has swept everything away, what terrible message from above is waiting to be revealed? When you put those 7 moments side by side, they're no longer just scattered news stories flashing across the screen. They fit together into one moving picture, a picture where power from above keeps coming down hard and fast, without giving folks a chance to catch their breath. From Dallas, where a tornado ripped apart a parking lot, to Iowa, plunged into darkness in the middle of the day, then Houston shaken by steel flying everywhere, Miami swept clean by raging winds, New Orleans jolted like an earthquake hit it, Kansas hearing that eerie roaring sound, and finally North Carolina swallowed up by floodwaters, one after another, no breaks, no mercy. What's really scary isn't just the destruction, it's the rhythm of it all. One storm ends and the next one starts, like drum beats building up to something big. Each event looks different, but they all speak the same language: wind, water, noise, shaking. It's as if nature itself is singing together in a dark, heavy symphony, and we're just helpless folks in the audience. Looking back, you start to see an invisible thread connecting them. It's not random that these things happen so close together, stronger than usual, in crowded places that stand for modern American strength. America, the country we thought nothing could touch, has become the stage for signs from heaven, where all our technology and power suddenly look pretty small. And right now, I think most of us feel something familiar yet strange, the feeling of being woken up. Have you noticed how this picture looks a lot like what was described thousands of years ago? In Matthew 24:7-8, Jesus warned, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains." The beginning of the birth pains. Not the end, but the start of something even harder. It doesn't stop there. The picture in Revelation adds even more chilling depth. Chapters 6 and 8 talk about seals being opened and trumpets sounding, bringing earthquakes, storms, and chaos all over the world. These aren't just separate disasters. They're steps in a process, pushing humanity closer to the edge. When you place those 7 recent moments inside that bigger picture, they suddenly feel eerily familiar. We often hear that this is just climate change natural cycles, or statistical flukes. But the Bible never denies that nature runs on laws. What the Bible stresses is who holds the controls over those laws. Matthew 24-29 goes on to say, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken." When the foundations get shaken, it's not just physical things. It's people's trust in their own control. Here's something worth stopping to think about. If this were only weather, why does it feel so much like a warning? Why do we feel smaller and smaller in front of nature these days? And why do those ancient prophecies ring so clear in today's world? Maybe we're not just watching the news, we're witnessing a message. Those 7 moments are like 7 bells ringing. Each one rings in a different place, in a different way, but they all have the same purpose: to wake up sleeping consciences. They're not meant to destroy everything right away. They're meant to warn. That's how the Bible usually describes God's actions. He warns before he judges. In Revelation 3:3, there's a sober reminder. "Remember then what you received and heard. Keep it and repent. If you will not wake up, I will come like a thief." No advance notice, no delay. The signs are only for those willing to open their eyes and look. And those 7 events we just saw, in that light, feel more like a final call than a coincidence. We live in a time when everything moves so fast. News stories come and go, pictures get forgotten, feelings wear thin, but some moments aren't meant to be ignored. Those storms didn't just tear up buildings, they tore apart the comfortable illusion of safety we've been holding on to. When nature rises up, all our titles and achievements don't mean much. And now the full picture is coming into focus. It's not just America. The whole world is entering what the Bible calls the last days. Matthew 24 isn't only about disasters, it's about them increasing, coming faster, and becoming unstoppable. What we're seeing today has all those marks. Time isn't stretching out as long as people think. Maybe you're wondering what we're supposed to do in the middle of all this. The Bible doesn't call for panic. It calls for staying awake. Not fear, but repentance, turning back, and getting our hearts ready. Because when the signs are this clear, staying silent isn't neutral anymore. It's a choice. 7 moments, 1 picture. A picture that isn't meant to entertain or shock. It's meant to wake us up. If this truly is the beginning of the birth pains, then it also means humanity is running out of time. And when the last bell rings, there won't be any more chances to ask why. When we look back at everything that's happened, we don't see them as separate news stories anymore, but as a steady stream of warnings running all through. From tornadoes and fierce storms, to earthquakes shaking things up, and floods sweeping everything away, America is right in the middle of a chain of events that's way beyond anything people can control. These aren't just natural disasters. They're signs of anger from above, ringing out clear in these last days. All this makes folks slow down and think. When the things we thought were rock solid start shaking, and when science and technology can't calm our fears anymore, what's left is questions about our spiritual lives. The Bible warned that signs like these would come, not to destroy everything right away, but to wake up hearts that have been asleep. We're living in days when time isn't as plentiful as it used to be. Every storm that passes, every rumble from the sky, feels like a reminder that chances don't last forever. This is the time for people to repent, to turn back to the Lord, not out of fear, but because we see the truth that real protection and hope are found only in Him. A lot of folks might choose to ignore it, keep thinking everything will just blow over, but Bible history shows that warnings always come before judgment starts. When the signs are this plain, ignoring them isn't harmless anymore. Time is running short, and the choices we make today matter forever. If you're reading this, maybe that final warning is echoing for you. Will you listen, or let it sweep you away? The question isn't meant to scare you. It's an invitation to think it over, to take a good look at the path you're on before the door closes without any more notice. If this has given you something to think about, please hit like to support the channel. share it so others can be warned too, and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. Thank you for sticking around to the end. I hope what's been shared here stays with you long enough to lead to real change.